Allow your breathing to soften, letting each slow inhale and gentle exhale carry the weight of the present moment away. Imagine yourself reclining beneath a canopy of twilight, the familiar hum of modern life fading to a restful hush. In its place rises a different cadence, the distant murmur of Latin voices, the low creak of cartwheels on worn basalt, the flicker of oil lamps dancing across whitewashed walls. Tonight, we drift back to millennia, to the heart of the Mediterranean world. Ancient Rome is still ascending, still stitching provinces to its banner. Yet its streets are already alive with rhythms that feel at once alien and strangely familiar. Together, we will meander through those streets, unhurried, observing the quiet textures of ordinary existence. No battles to rouse the pulse, no thunderous speeches to stir the blood, only the slow, steady beat of daily life, the kind that lulled countless Romans into slumber long before us. Let the distant echo of that rhythm guide you. With each scene, allow the mind's eye to open just enough to glimpse the past, then soften again like lantern light, behind half-drawn shutters inviting tranquility to settle deeper with every word. Dawn over the Suburra picture. If you will, a sky still tinted lavender. The first swallows wheeling overhead. You stand in the Suburra, Rome's densely packed valley quarter where artisans, freedmen, and humble traders greet the day. Stone insula multi-story apartment blocks loom on either side, their plaster facades modeled by age, their wooden balconies draped with linen left to dry overnight. A cool breath of air threads through the alley, carrying the faint scent of damp clay roof tiles and yesterday's hearth smoke. Somewhere below, a door sighs open. A baker steps onto the street, shoulders wrapped in a coarse wool cloak against a lingering chill. He does not hurry. He knows the city wakes in layers, like a lily unfolding. First, the bakers, then the water carriers, then the chatter of market women, as his sandaled feet tap a slow beat on the cobble step. Tapu may notice how the sound repeats in steady cadence, inviting your own heartbeat to mirror its calm. Inside his workshop, the air is warm and yeasty, thick with the comforting aroma of spelt and barley dough. He sprinkles flour across the worn wooden bench, the movement gentle, almost meditated. Nearby, an apprentice kneads in a patient rhythm, fists sinking and folding, until the dough breathes beneath his palms. Imagine the soft give of it, the muted thud each time it meets the table steady. Measured, morning street sounds as dawn drifts toward morning. Shutters creak, voices rise, yet remain subdued, still respectful of the hour, still wrapped in that early hush. Water sellers roll clam ferry up from the Tiber, their cartwheels rumbling like distant thunder over stone. Sparrows flit down to claim stray crumbs, their wings beating quick bursts of air that brush your cheeks in playful imitation. Pause here. Notice the textured chorus, a mother calling softly to rouse her children, the hollow clink of terracotta cups stacked by a tavern keeper, the faint splash of water as a slave rinses yesterday's dust from the threshold. Each sound is gentle, contained a droplet in a larger, soothing stream. You need not grasp every detail only. Let the flow of small, ordinary noises cradle you. Midday at the Forum, Holatorium by the time soul climbs high. The streets glow pale gold. You drift toward the Forum, Holatorium, Rome's produce market, where stallholders arrange pyramids of figs, olives, and fragrant bundles of rue. The air here is thicker, saturated with herbal notes and the sweet musk of ripening fruit. Yet even in the bustle, there is no rush. Conversations meander like slow water. A farmer debating price with a cook to matrons comparing the tenderness of lentils. A young scholar murmuring a line of poetry to himself as he weighs out chickpeas for his evening porridge. Feel the sun on your shoulders, warm but not harsh. A fountain murmurs nearby, its cool spray misting the stone rim. You dip a fingertip into the clear water. It is crisp, carrying a whisper of mountain springs, channeled by distant as droplets fall back. They create concentric small circles, widening, then fading, much like each thought that arises in your mind tonight. Acknowledged. then allowed to dissolve. Quiet labors beyond the city gate. Perhaps you wander further, beyond the Esquiline gate, where allotment gardens patchwork the gentle slopes. A tenant farmer stoops among rows of cabbages, loosening soil with a wooden dip. His movements are slow, purposeful push, twist, lift mirroring the quiet persistence of growth itself. Nearby, his wife turns cheese in a willow basket, letting excess whey seep away. The breeze is touched with the faint tang of sheep's milk and hillside. Pause to listen. The low hum of insects, the distant clop of hooves, the soft sigh of wind in poplar leaves. Imagine yourself seated beneath one of those trees, back resting against its sturdy trunk. The bark is rough but supportive. Overhead, branches sway with a gentle creak, like an old lullaby. You might close your eyes for a moment just. A moment and feel the temperature of the day settle around you, warm and secure. Afternoon shadows, urban hearts. When you return within the walls, shutters are partially drawn against the height of the sun. Inside a modest domus, a matron tends the household altar. She sprinkles a pinch of salted flour onto glowing embers, the offering crackling softly before dissipating into perfumed smoke. The flicker of the flame casts rippling shadows along plastered walls, painted in dusty reds and muted oak. In the courtyard, a slave girl stirs a bronze pot, suspended above a charcoal brazier. Lentils simmer, releasing a comforting aroma of garlic and lovage. She moves the ladle in lazy circles, the broth swaying in time. Each turn of the spoon is unhurried, soothing. Perhaps you'd like to linger beside her, allowing the lazy steam to warm your face, letting the faint bubble of cooking pulses mimic the private murmurs of a gentle brook. Evening's gentle glow, day mellows into dusk. The Via Sacra glints beneath lantern light as citizens stroll toward the public baths. The thermi are not yet crowded. Laughter is hushed, echoing softly off vaulted ceilings. Warm water envelops bodies in a silent embrace, its surface broken only by the slow stroke of an arm. Then still again, imagine yourself lowering into the tepidarium, buoyed by silken warmth. Weight slips away, tension releases, limb by limb, until even your thoughts float with a quiet steam that rises and then disappears into the rafters. Later, wrapped in clean wool, you may pass a taberna, where neighbors share watered wine. Their conversation drifts through the doorway, in subdued ways familiar, comforting. Someone plucks a lyre, the notes soft, almost fragile, like dew settling on a leaf. The melody repeats, a simple motif you begin to recognize each time it returns. Gentle and predictable, inviting your eyelids to fall a little heavier with every cycle. Night settles over the 7 hills. At last, lamps are shuttered. The city exhales. Somewhere on the Capitol line, a watchman calls the hour. A low, measured signal that drifts across rooftops, reminding every listener that another portion of night has begun. Dogs settle, market stalls sleep beneath canvas. The Tiber glistens under a sliver moon, its current whispering along the banks. You step onto a quiet terrace overlooking tiled rooftops. Cool night air brushes your skin. In the distance, a solitary star trembles above the Palatine, as if keeping silent vigil over the city's dreams. Listen closely. The hush is profound, but never empty. It is filled with the breath of thousands at rest, the steady thrum of life continuing in gentle secrecy. Take one more unhurried breath. Feel the rise, the fall, the peaceful stillness that follows. Rome in her infancy of empire lies calm beneath you, her ambitions momentarily set aside, her noise subdued, her streets breathing in quiet harmony, and you, a silent observer, rest beside her suspended between centuries, wrapped in the same universal silence that cradles all who seek repose. As this tranquil vision settles, allow it to become a soft foundation for deeper rest. Soon, we will drift toward a single life, a figure whose footsteps echo through Rome's ascent. But not yet. For now, remain where the night is gentle, where the air is cool, and where the rhythm of ordinary Roman hearts beats softly, steadily, almost imperceptibly, beneath your own. Let us now shift not abruptly, but like a curtain drawn slowly across a sunlit room. The hum of daily life fades gently into the background, and from within it, one figure begins to take form. Imagine a man in his study. A scroll is half unfurled across a polished walnut desk. A wax tablet rests nearby, its surface glinting beneath the faint light of a single oil lamp. Outside, the forum murmurs with distant voices. But here within this modest villa in the Quirinal district there is only quiet focus. His stylus hovers. Thought precedes words. The rhythm of his breathing is steady. This is Marcus Tullius Cicero, and we will walk with him for a walk, observing the subtle arc of a life lived in service of words and laws, a boy among books. Cicero's life began not amid the bustle of Rome itself, but in the quiet provincial town of Arpinum, nestled among the Apennine hills. Picture a morning mist clinging to olive groves, the gentle clatter of goats' hooves over cobbled paths. It was a place where the mountains hemmed in the sky, where time moved slowly, and where the young Marcus would first hear the measured cadence of Latin poetry from his father's lips. The Ciceros were of the equestrian class, wealthy enough to educate their sons, not noble enough to forget the value of diligence. His father, infirm and introspective, surrounded the boy with scrolls, letters, and philosophical fragments. Imagine Marcus sitting cross-legged by the hearth, parchment in hand, sounding out the dense syllables of any, or slowly transcribing the maxims of the Stoics with a reed pen, pausing only to watch the ink dry into soft fibers. There was no rush in those early years, only the gentle layering of knowledge, day by day. The city beckons by adolescence. Marcus had outgrown the quiet rhythms of up. His parents sent him to roam a journey of several days by cart and foot. Picture the slow progression of the road south. Wildflowers at the edge of pavers, the rise and fall of distant hills, the hush of evening campfires under the stars. When he arrived, the city would have overwhelmed the senses. Rome in the early 1st century BCE was alive with argument, ambition, and dust. He studied under great minds, the legal scholar Scaevola, the orator Lucius Crassus, the Greek philosopher Philo. These teachers did not merely drill knowledge into him, they offered Marcus the rhythms of thought: how to pause before speaking, how to observe before judging. You might imagine him walking the porticos of the Forum, quietly rehearsing arguments to the whisper of sandal soles on stone. His voice, even then, was said to be calm, clear, deliberate. The patient climb. Unlike many Romans whose rise depended on military command, Cicero advanced not by sword, but by sentence. He was not the sort to shout. His strength lay in precise timing, in well-placed pauses, in the delicate unfolding of an idea. His first cases were small contract disputes, minor insults, but he approached each with care, building his reputation not through drama, but discipline. In 80 BCE, Cicero defended Sextus Roscius against a charge of parricide. The court was tense, overshadowed by political danger. But Cicero spoke with quiet clarity. He did not gesture wildly or thunder at the judges. Instead, he told the truth in layers, letting logic settle like dew on leaves. Evitable, refreshing, undeniable. The acquittal made his name, but more than fame, it taught him something deeper, that the world could bend, slowly, to the rhythm of reasoned speech. A consul, not a conqueror. The years passed. He married, raised children, held magic. Each step up the cursus honorum brought more responsibility. But Cicero never lost his measured tone. In 63 BCE, he reached the pinnacle, elected consul of Rome. A new robe of white edged with purple, a seat upon the curule chair, a scroll bearing the seal of the Senate in his hand. But there was no roar in his ascent, only the quiet pride of achievement earned with patience. And yet, even the most careful path can lead to turmoil. That same year, a conspiracy brewed in shadow. Catiline, a nobleman grown bitter and reckless, plotted to overthrow the Republic. Rome trembled. Senators debated. But Cicero, ever composed, rose in the temple of Jupiter Stator and delivered his most remembered words. not with anger, but gravity. "How long, O Cataline? Will you abuse our patience?" He did not yell. He did not need to. His words unfurled like calm thunder, drawing breathless silence from his peers. The conspiracy unraveled. The Senate stirred. Cicero returned home that evening not with a triumph, but with a sense of duty fulfilled. Exile and the weight of absence power, however, is never still. The tides of politics are like the tide of placid on the surface, but ever shifting beneath. A few years later, Cicero would find himself exiled, condemned for his role in executing conspirators, without trial. Now imagine him on a ship gliding down the coast of Italy. The wind soft, the waves rhythmic. Behind him, Rome faded beneath a pale horizon. Ahead, uncertainty. In letters to his friends, his voice did not waver. Though it carried sorrow, he wrote daily, methodically, as if by writing he could hold his identity together. One can picture him in Thessalonica, seated by a low wall, staring out at the sea. He speaks softly into the dusk, composing thoughts to be sent on parchment across the water. Reflections on justice, on purpose, on the soul's resilience. A return with shadows. He did return, eventually, welcomed with applause. But the city had changed, and so had he. Julius Caesar now loomed large. The republic Cicero loved felt increasingly fragile, stretched thin like worn papyrus. He wrote more than he spoke. Letters, dialogues, essays, on friendship, duty, old age. His voice now was not just legal, but philosophical, a balm for a fading world. You might imagine him old and seated in his villa near his dog asleep at his feet, a scroll half-read in his lap. Cicero's later writings were thoughtful, often elegiac. He still believed in words, still believed in the slow power of thought to steady nations. He would not live to see Augustus rise. In 43 BCE, amid the chaos of civil war, he was executed, his name placed on a list by men who feared the very clarity of his voice. And yet, his words remained in libraries, on lips, in classrooms centuries hence, a legacy etched in ink tonight. His story rests quietly beside you, not as a tale of triumph or a tragedy, but as a lesson in stillness, a reminder that one can shape the world not through force, but through focus. That patience can be powerful, that even in the roaring center of a city, there are those who choose to speak softly, to reason slowly, to endure quietly. Let his presence linger now, like the echo of footsteps in a marble hall, distant, dignified, fading gently into silence. The hour is deeper now. As we leave Cicero's study behind, we will turn toward another layer of Rome, one less certain, less written, and touched by the mysteries of time and belief. A new segment awaits. But for now, let the quiet of Cicero's world settle around you like dust upon vellum, soft, unshaken, and still. There are layers to Rome, not just in brick or marble, but in silence, in the things unspoken, the rituals barely understood, the meanings lost to time. Beneath the bustling streets and above the crumbling forums lies another Rome, not one of senators or soldiers, but of quiet prayers, flickering lamps, and carved symbols that speak to something older, quieter, and deeply mysterious. Let us now walk slowly through those hidden corridors and the traces of belief, wonder, and custom that shaped the Roman soul, often far from the noise of the Senate floor. The whispering walls of the Mithraeum beneath the modern city. Under layers of stone and time lie rooms few Romans spoke of openly. Picture a small, narrow chamber beneath a domus or tucked behind a public bath. The air is cool, the walls damp, lit only by the steady glow of oil lamps. This is a Mithraeum, a place of worship devoted to the god Myth. Only a stone bench lining the walls, enough for a dozen initiates. At the far end, a relief Mithras, in Phrygian cap and flowing cape, slaying a celestial bull. The scene is precise, almost dreamlike. The gods, face serene, the bull's body yielding, and the surrounding symbols celestial stars, the sun, the moon, a serpent coil, No one wrote down the full meaning. The rites of Mithras were secret, passed through whispered ritual. Initiates would fast, descend in silence, and undergo stages of spiritual rebirth. Imagine the hush of such a ceremony, robes brushing stone, chants echoing softly, water trickling from a hidden... To be in a Mithraeum is to feel time thicken. You are no longer in a city of senators, but in a world of shadows and symbol, where men sought something personal, transcendent, unknowable. The stillness here is dense and sacred. The ogre's quiet sky watching far above, in contrast to the darkened temples below. Another mystery played out in daylight. Imagine yourself beside an augur, one of Rome's priestly He stands on the Capitoline Hill, staff in hand, eyes scanning the pale blue sky. His task, to interpret the will of the gods through the movement of birds. He marks out a sacred space, or templum, not with walls, but with gestures dividing the sky into quadrants. A raven flies east, a swallow flits north. Each movement means something. He does not speak loudly. He notes the signs, nods slowly, and informs the magistrate. No crowds applaud, and yet decisions of state wars, laws, elections rested on such quiet observations. This belief in omens was not simple superstition, but a deep rhythm within Roman life. To observe, to interpret, to wait. It was a patience built into the state itself. And even today, as the sky arches, the same over the 7 hills, one might imagine the shadows of augurs still watching, still reading the wind. Etruscan echoes beneath the stone. To understand Rome's mysteries, one must also drift further back to the Etruscans, the civilization that came before. Their influence seeps through the earliest Roman rituals. The curving arch of an aqueduct, the practice of haruspice divining signs from sacrificed animals. But in their tombs lies their quietest legacy. Picture a rock-cut chamber buried in the hills of Savetri. You step into the gloom. The walls bloom with faded frescoes. Dancers frozen mid-step, banqueters reclining with goblets raised, a painted lyre stilled in the air. The room is silent now, but once it was filled with music, memory, ritual. The Etruscans believed the afterlife mirrored life, a place of feasts, family, and joy. Their tombs were homes, carefully carved, arranged like neighborhoods. You might imagine walking these narrow stone streets, past doorways carved into the earth, where each silence is dense with presence. Even in death, the Etruscans whispered, there is rhythm even beneath the soil. There is structure, the Vestals, and their eternal flame. Now let us ascend again, gently, into the heart of the Forum, where the Temple of Vesta once stood. The air here is quieter than elsewhere, perhaps. Out of habit, perhaps out of reverence. For here, the Vestal virgins tended Rome's most sacred flame. The temple itself was circular, echoing the shape of early Roman hub. Within it, the fire burned day and night, never allowed to fade. The Vestals chosen as young girls lived in a nearby house, secluded, honored, bound by 30 years of celibacy and discipline. Imagine their white robes brushing the mosaic floors, their sandals leaving soft impressions in the dust, a gentle clang as the bronze fire poker meets the hearth, the warmth of the flame, a steady heartbeat in the still air. No one cheered when the flame was stoked. No crowd gathered, but it mattered more than legions or laws. That gentle fire was Rome's soul, its stillness, its steadiness, its continuity. If it ever went out, it was seen as a dire omen, but mostly it did not. Mostly it remained a quiet, constant flicker in a city otherwise filled with noise, murmurs of foreign gods. As Rome grew, so did its spiritual patchwork. In apartment courtyards and upper rooms, you might hear the soft incantations to Isis, the Egyptian goddess, or smell incense curling upward from a shrine to the mother from the east. There were little statues on kitchen shelves, small altars behind curtains, tiny clay lamps, shaped like lions, birds, or stars. These were not grand ceremonies. They were personal, private, a woman whispering prayers while pouring oil, a father lighting a flame for his household spirits. The Lares, each ritual, a thread, each symbol a small knot of meaning. Together, they wove a quiet tapestry of belief that stretched from Britain to Syria, the catacombs, and a gentle rebirth toward the later days of the empire. In the dim catacombs, beyond the city walls, new voices began to pray. The early Christians, still persecuted, still hidden, gathered underground to sing softly, to share bread and stories, to paint symbols of fish and doves and shepherds. The catacombs were not only tombs, they were sanctuaries. The air was cool and still. The walls whispered with faith and hope. Imagine a flickering lamp lighting a narrow corridor. A hand touches the rough stone, tracing a painted anchor, the symbol of salvation. No preaching, no fanfare, just a calm repetition of a prayer, passed quietly from soul to soul, generation to generation. It was in these hush-filled places that Rome's spiritual shape began to change. Not with a clash, but with a soft and steady transformation, like dew collecting on a stone. So now, as we leave these mysteries behind, let us exhale once more. Rome was not just a city of conquest. It was also a city of questions, of quiet signs, of layers buried beneath the surface. Each whispered chant, each flickering flame, each bird traced against the dawn sky. All part of a deeper rhythm, a rhythm not of history books, but of lives lived softly, steadily, with reverence. Let that sense linger now. Let the symbols dissolve slowly into thought, and as the stillness deepens, we will gently rise again into the marble halls, the shaded courtyards, and the soft sandals of Rome's elite, where contrast reveals yet another facet of this ancient world.